Hi, everybody. My name is Ashley J, and welcome to SPSM Chat. I'm so excited for today's episode. I can't wait for you guys to hear about the work that our two guests are doing right now. And so I'm here hosting SPSM today with one of our veteran co-hosts, Hudson Harris. Hudson, do you have anything to say?
Hello, everyone. It's amazing to be back, and I'm so excited to be part of this episode.
Yes, we're great to have you back here, Hudson. Any updates about Hamlet?
Hamlet is now a chunky boy. You can still follow him on Instagram at Sir Hamlet Pig. He is now north of 150 pounds and still runs around like a little piglet, but he's a snuggler and just massive.
Oh my gosh. Well, we all miss Hamlet, and we can't wait to talk to our two guests today. But before we jump into our guest, just want to give everyone a reminder that we have resources. So our crisis hotlines are listed below in our ticker banner. You can find it at the bit.ly link listed there. Feel free to keep it for yourselves or share it around. This resource list is inclusive for everyone. So if you ever feel the need that you need to call a crisis hotline during our show, because, hey, we do talk about suicide. We mentioned suicide. It's in our name. So utilize our resources to your advantage. Now, let's get into our guest. Hudson, shall we?
Yes, very excited.
So I'll be introducing our first guest, and her name is Imade. Now, I'm really excited. Imade is one of my very, very, very best friends and just amazing all-around person. She's a writer and mental health advocate who founded Depressed While Black. She is a suicide attempt survivor who lives with clinical depression and borderline personality disorder. Imade first developed Depressed While Black as her 2015 Columbia University nonfiction creative writing MFA thesis. Depressed While Black has grown into an online community, an in-progress book, and a nonprofit that donates Black-affirming personal care items to psychiatric patients. Imade, it's so good to have you here.
It's so great to see you. It's like we're almost like I'm in your living room again. Oh my goodness.
Know.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, of course. And Hudson, would you mind introducing our next guest?
I would love to. Our next guest is Carlita Victoria. She is a Raleigh, North Carolina native and attended the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Carlita is an active performer and a certified personal fitness instructor. A committed mental health advocate, Carlita founded the Darkness Rising nonprofit for Black mental health to create a safe space and mental health resources for the Black community. The Darkness Rising Project is a 501(c) nonprofit created to help those in the Black community begin conversations with their family, coworkers, and friends about their mental health and emotional well-being. They accomplish this by partnering with mental health providers, mental health educators to create events, seminars, and sessions where the intersection between mental health education and the arts collide. You can find them online at Darkness Rising Project or darknessrisingproject.org. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much.
Well, we're happy to have you both, Carlita and Imade, on our show. So, we hear there are some exciting things going on between Darkness Rising and Depressed While Black. So tell me, what's this? You guys just launched a new program this month called Help Me Find a Therapist. How does it work?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you how it started. I was overwhelmed. So I tried to do a Help Me Find a Therapist project just, for my nonprofit. And I didn't think that I would get a whole bunch of requests for people needing help finding a Black therapist. I just thought, a couple people would fill out this Google form and, it won't be a whole lot of work to do. Well, it was a whole bunch of work to do. The demand is so great, especially in the pandemic, in the way that is devastating Black communities. People really need mental health support right now. And so I was overwhelmed with responses and I was like, I cannot do this alone. I need support. And so I reached out to Carlita, the founder of Darkness Rising, and personally, she's been doing the work already of helping folks find therapists. And so we just teamed up together because we needed to provide a service for Black folks who a lot of them, and some of them are going through crisis, in the middle of the pandemic. And it's so difficult to find a Black therapist when you're really struggling.
Right, right. That makes a lot of sense. Carlita, did you have anything to add
Yes,
anymore?
all of that. Yeah, I wanted Imade to start because this program was originally a program of Depressed While Black. And because she was doing this work and had opened up this program to the public, and even though I was doing this work separately, we had not released it as a full program because, like she said, it's so much work. So I was really just we've been getting so many DMs like, hey, I really want a Black therapist. Can you help me find one? Do you have any recommendations? And I would just kind of do it on my own, but it became so much. And I was just so grateful to see that she was already doing something like this and had already, started this work. And just really excited to be able to partner with her because too much on one person is just too much.
Right.
So, but we both want to be able to serve our communities because, we're so much in need of this. And I think both of us have had our own separate experiences with a culturally competent therapist, and it's helped us so much that we want to be able to share that with other people. So I think both of us are really grateful for each other.
Yes, we need each other so much. Oh my
Right.
goodness. Like, I do not have an administrative bone in my body, okay? I don't know how to make spreadsheets and little check boxes. And Carlita could do that. Carlita's way to put a check box in a Google spreadsheet is like mind blown. Like, I don't even know how.
I don't know how to do that.
You can put a checkbox in a Google spreadsheet?
Listen, it is something that I learned during the pandemic, and I am just, anytime that there's a checkbox to be had, I'm like, put it in there. I want it. So,
I need you to send that to me.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet? What was the spark or the inspiration for like you guys joining forces? Like a lot of times people just continue to do it alone, but what was your inspiration or spark?
Carlita, did I reach out to you or you reach out to me? I don't know. It's just,
I feel like we've been friends for years.
yeah.
However, we've never actually met in person. But when I think of like my list of friends, I'm like, oh yeah, like we're friends. Like this is my girl. Like, yeah. I want to say it was just Twitter.
Yeah.
I go hard for Twitter. Like,
same.
Yes.
Twitter fam is like fam.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we met on Twitter.
Yeah.
And we just kept talking.
And I'm just like constantly amazed by Darkness Rising and like the scale of the work that they do. I mean, to get like all of Black Broadway to be singing about mental health is like, how do you do that? And I think I just was drawn just to the scope of the work being so large and so broad, but also being just so pointed in the message. And man, it's just amazing. I still don't know how, Carlita, you do that. And I'm just amazed.
It is definitely not just me. And I think we have been watching the work that Depressed While Black was doing. And I was like, oh, she clearly must have a huge team of people helping. Like look at all these programs. She's giving donations to mental health patients. Clearly she has a huge team behind her. And I was just like, I always consistently amazed, and honestly just trying to pattern myself after what you were doing, and trying to learn and grow from you. And I think it's always good to have people in your corner and not even know those people are in your corner, and then you meet them. Well, you virtually meet them, right. And then you're able to create something together. I think it has been a beautiful thing.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of your partnership for the Help Me Find a Therapist program and Twitter, and you mentioned that both of you have been receiving many DMs of people asking how to find a therapist. How do you think COVID-19 has affected the program? Like, have you seen a lot of people coming in, like a decrease of people? Like, what has it been like?
You go ahead, Carly.
Okay. Well, I will say that before we were officially partnered in this program, and Imade was doing the program itself on her own, and I was just receiving separate DMs. When the pandemic hit, I got a surplus of emails, DMs from people that I don't know and from friends and family members. It shot up immediately, especially after the death of George Floyd. For Black people, that was and still is just a reminder of the things that we've been seeing for years, that now the world has suddenly become aware of. And it's been, I think, a very difficult process to watch the world suddenly become aware of the pain that we've been living in for years. And we have to be able to process through those things, and we just need an outlet. And so I've gotten several emails and several DMs about that, especially since the start of the pandemic.
Imade?
Yeah, it's been really difficult. I live with chronic suicidality, and I was struggling before the pandemic. You know, I felt isolated before, and so this pandemic, it just amplifies a lot of the really scary conditions that we were already living in before. And so it's been like a huge challenge. And I think the great thing about so many Black mental health organizations is that we have a bunch of directories now. We have so many directories, Therapy for Black Girls, Beam, Darkness Rising has a directory. There's so many great directories. And I just want to find a streamlined way to utilize all these resources at the same time, and then provide something for folks that matches what they're looking for. And so the process of Help Me Find a Therapist is essentially someone comes across our Google form, and they fill out the form, and they say, hey, I'm looking for a therapist. Maybe they'll put on the form, I don't have insurance, so I prefer a therapist with a sliding scale. And I'm dealing with issues related to, maybe living with bipolar or being a single parent. They could put all of that on the list. We get that form back, and we search according to that criteria. So we may look for, go to a directory like OpenPath, where the therapy sessions can range from $35 to $60. Or we may look somewhere like Therapy for the People, a new directory that's low cost, or go through Darkness Rising, go through all these different wellness directories. So we do kind of the heavy lifting for people, so that at the end of the day, they'll just get an email. And not technically at the end of the day, but when we're finished with the search, we'll send them an email. It'll have up to 3 Black therapist options according to their criteria. And we just want to make it possible for people to get care as soon as possible, because finding a therapist can take a really long time, especially if you're by yourself and you don't know where to look. And people right now are just, they're in a crisis point right now. And a lot of times the people who suffer the most have the least resources. So we want to give this resource to them.
Right.
I also want to say that I feel like it's so important to find a therapist before you feel like you even need a therapist.
Right.
Because a lot of us do wait until we're in crisis mode to reach out for help. But before we even get that, we could all use therapy before we ever get to that point. And that way, if ever you do get to that point, there's already somebody there who can help you put the tools in place to help you get through that. And I think that if we reach out before we feel like we need to reach out, then we'll have those tools.
It's like going to the gym. Like I posted a meme a while ago that like mental health is like going to the gym. You should be going to the gym even when you're feeling good. The number of people that push back on that was just bananas. I'm like, no, really, you should go now. Like it's good. I have a follow-up to like something that you both kind of touched on. Carlita, is like since George Floyd, when things have finally kind of entered the national consciousness of just how bad it's been, what are some of the barriers that prevent Black people from seeking treatment, from persisting in treatment? What are some of those things to kind of get to that next level of not just the consciousness of it, but then also what's preventing people from getting there?
Yes, I feel like there have been and there are several barriers that prevent Black people from either seeking or receiving culturally competent therapy. And a lot of it comes from the fact that often whiteness is the foundation of mental health care. So everything is surrounded by white norms, white values, and white beliefs. And so it becomes hard to then go into therapy and have someone who might not understand how nuanced it can be as a Black person when you are just trying to explain something. Maybe I'm in need of therapy because of something regarding my hair, and I don't want to have to explain that to someone who does not have experience in that area and just doesn't. It feels like a lot to even sometimes be in therapy, but then for me to have to further explain myself, now I'm tired, and I don't want to be tired. I want to go there. I want to receive the tools that I need. I want to grow, but I don't want to spend time explaining myself. So I feel like that's one of the biggest things. There's also this cultural stigma, and this, in a lot of our families, we're taught pray it away. And that's something that I was taught as a child, not in my immediate family, but in church, I was taught that. And it took me until adulthood to realize that I can pray and I can go to therapy, and that's all fine. But because we're so often taught that, oh, girl, you don't need no therapy. That's for crazy people. And we use that word that we believe, oh, all you need to do is pray. Do you have a roof over your head? You have food on your table? Girl, you are fine. Then we don't reach out. We're like, oh, you know what? I do have food. I'm good. And then we don't even try. And I feel like that affects us a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the last research report I saw was only 4% of psychologists and therapists in the United States were Black. 92% or 93% were white, and then Latino, and then Asian. Yeah, I mean, it's bananas.
Wow. Imade, do you think that there are some other barriers to treatment for Black people that you've noticed during the Help Me Find a Therapist campaign? I know you guys mentioned that some people say that they don't have insurance, So, what are some other barriers you think exist?
Yeah, it's not having insurance. It could also be the fact that they may have a mental health condition that is more stigmatized and just less, less part of the mainstream. I deal with borderline personality disorder, and so it can be really difficult to find a Black therapist that knows how to treat people who have borderline personality disorder, because that often requires knowing dialectical behavioral therapy. So you just have a hoop after a hoop after a hoop, and it can just be so draining and so exhausting to have to vet every therapist. And so I want to do that for other people, because it's just hard enough as it is to go through the pandemic without any support. We definitely want to come through for them.
And the vetting process you mentioned, when you go out to search for these different therapists, do you actually call them on the client's behalf to vet them? Like, what are some types of questions that you ask?
Well, you can answer.
Okay, sure. So what we do is we provide them with a list of potential therapists that may work for them, but we also include information saying this does not necessarily mean that this therapist is the right one for you, or that they currently take your insurance. It says online that they take your insurance, but perhaps their insurance qualifications may have changed. So while we don't reach out directly to the therapist to call, only because of the volume that comes in, but one day we'll have a huge team. Maybe we'll be able to do that. So while we're unable to reach out in that way, what we do provide is we provide a very comprehensive list of things that you should ask your potential therapist when you're having your initial consultation. And that list of things includes things that you can ask your therapist, kind of as if you're on a date and you're asking these first date questions to make sure that it's going to be a good fit. And these are questions that therapists are used to receiving. So they're not, it's nothing that you would say to a therapist and they'd be offended upon hearing, but it's just making sure that it's going to be a good fit for you and the therapist. And you're provided with a list of those questions and a set of next steps for you, so that you have a list of therapists. You also have a list of questions to ask that therapist. And you have a list of, hey, this is the next step that you should take in order to contact this therapist and in order to start therapy.
Carlita, could you help me learn how to date like that? So like, I've got like a list of things I'm supposed to ask.
I think that people like it when I ask those questions on dates, but I definitely have a list.
I mean, I was going to say, like, not to like, you know, to joke too much, but I mean, it sounds like an OK Cupid, but for therapy. So maybe call like OK Therapist, you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's time for a rebrand, you know?
No, we always looking for better names. I'm always. So like,
I will say though, y'all's websites and messaging and imagery, like I find a lot of like smaller nonprofit startups in this space don't spend a lot of time on that, and I'm like, it's so critical. It's not the only thing. It's like, but if it's not good, it's the biggest thing. But if it's good, you don't have to worry about it. But like y'all's presentation is just immaculate. It's really well done.
Look, so OK Therapist might work along with that new website, you know?
It really is like dating. And it's, I think a lot of times we don't realize that it's okay to tell a therapist, thank you so much for your time, but I don't think this is a good fit.
Yeah.
That's, you know, you just have to tell them.
Yeah. I interviewed a therapist to kind of get their understanding of like, when do you know if this is the right therapist? And they basically said by like 4 sessions, you should get like a good sense. And they said, yeah, and they said for themselves, it's around 4, because I think they do some sort of evaluation or something by 4 sessions. And so, yeah, you should pretty much feel pretty solid if this is the right therapist for you by 4 sessions. And we have to remind our folks, we have to remind Black folks that like we're worthy of, you know, great care. We're worthy of healing and supportive and kind and specialized, culturally competent care. And sometimes, you know, with Black folks, we have been so beat down. We've been so oppressed by so many structural forms against us that, you know, sometimes we just accept anything. But no, you don't have to just accept anything. You know, you can vet your therapist. You can interview your therapist because you're paying them, or, you know, somebody is paying them for the time that they're contributing. So, yeah.
Right. And so, you know, when you're in these 4 sessions, you know, and you ask the necessary questions, like what are those necessary questions that you think a person should ask their therapist? So, you know, like a client put in a form with you through the Help Me Find a Therapist program. You send them back 3 recommendations, and they're seeing the first recommended therapist. Like, what are maybe like the top 3 to 5 questions someone should be asking?
Are you?
You made the list, Carlita. Go ahead.
I was actually just pulling up the form so that I can talk through some of them. Sure. So some of the most important questions that I feel like are important to ask, especially right now, is to make sure that that person offers virtual therapy. I think that's probably one of the most important things right now. It's also important to know, if you know, some of us are not going to know what your goals might be. So maybe I'm starting therapy and I am not sure if I have a specific goal, or I'm not sure what I may be going through. I'm not sure of any of that, but I just know I need someone to talk to. That's totally fine. I can relay that information. But let's say I know very specifically I have PTSD and I also have generalized anxiety disorder. And these are some things that I want to work through. I want to work on my abandonment issues. These are my real things. So whenever I am going into a consultation, the first thing that I'm going to say is, hey, this is what I deal with. Do you have experience in these areas? And what do you perceive as progress? Whenever you do have a client that has PTSD, how do you determine progress? I think that's a really important thing to ask. I also think it's important to ask if they're licensed and certified. And you might say, well, why is that a question? But it is 2021 and we have to vet everyone. So it's important to they won't be offended. They'll say, hey, yes, this is my license number right here. That's an important question to ask. I think it's always important that even if I might have a Black therapist, that does not necessarily mean that they have experience with people, with Black people. So I'm still going to ask, hey, do you have experience with people in my particular community? And how do you maybe questions about what you think about white supremacy? Questions like that are very important to me because as I'm in a session, I want to make sure that I feel comfortable speaking honestly and candidly about white supremacy or microaggressions or anything that I might be experiencing. And I want to know how my therapist works through those things in a session.
That's good.
Yeah, and I would also say, you know, as a chronically suicidal person, you know, do you have training in suicide prevention? Do you have experience treating clients who have suicidal crises? And what does your support look like for them? Like, are you going to be the type of therapist that picks up calls at 3 a.m.? Or are you going to be a therapist that will allow me to do an emergency session? Those questions are really important because you want to answer them before you're in crisis and not figure out what's going on, you know, during. And unfortunately, a lot of therapists do not have suicide prevention training. You would think otherwise, but suicide prevention training is actually not common. So that's important to see what type of safety plan does your therapist offer and what you can create together.
I think that is so important. I just piggybacking off of that. When I was suicidal, I reached out to several therapists and no one would take me. But that was the reason why. Well, there were many reasons why, but some of those reasons were because they didn't have the training, and some of those reasons were because they perceived me as a liability. But when people are in a crisis and they need to reach out, it takes everything to look for a therapist. And I wish that I had someone to help me find a therapist. So we're hoping that we can, you know, help people in that process who may be dealing with the same thing.
If you could go back in time and talk to yourself when you were looking for a therapist, or talk to other Black folks that are in a place where they're wanting to look for a therapist, what advice would y'all give them? Like, I mean, I love the detail, and I love like the questions, like those are better things than I ever asked. Like, I've always looked at like Tinder. You wouldn't just go out with anybody you met on Tinder. Like, you've got to like ask questions. But like at a higher level, what's the advice you would give them when they're in that situation of looking for a therapist and considering getting one?
Yeah, the main one for me is just like, you're worthy of care, you know, because for me, sometimes I'm already depressed. So I'm already feeling like unworthy of being provided for and cared for. And so the main thing for me was just like, you're worthy of care. And then I would also say, you know, as a person that lives with a highly stigmatized condition, borderline personality disorder, you may be denied services. Therapists may drop you if they find out that you have BPD, or if you're exhibiting symptoms. And so I would just say that, like, I'm worthy of a therapist that wants to treat me. And the therapist that I have now is a Black therapist. And she's like, I like working with people with BPD. Y'all keep it real. You know, y'all honest. Like, y'all keep it 100. Like, she's actually saying she wants to like be with me in my worst moments. And I think it's so important to have a therapist that actually likes you, because you can tell when a therapist is annoyed with you. Like, I can tell if a therapist is mad that like I brought up a problem with my best friend for the 100th time. I can tell through their body language, through their demeanor, that they're being closed off and they're not interested. And so I think it's really important that you have a therapist that actually wants to listen to you, that actually wants to be there for you, that actually doesn't treat you like you're a burden when you show symptoms, because we're going to show symptoms. We're going to be messy. We're going to be, you know, annoying. We're going to be, you know, people that could be hard to love, but we still need therapists in that moment supporting us. And so I would say kind of high level, you're worthy of care and you shouldn't settle for less.
I love that.
Yeah. Carlita, do you have anything what
that.
advice would you give?
I would say that if you have a support system that you trust or someone that you trust, to let that person be your accountability partner as you're in your search, so that you have someone to say, hey, did you follow up with that therapist today? Did you email that therapist? Did you call that therapist? Did you do that consultation? Having someone checking in on you. And I try to do that as much as possible with people in my life who I know are seeking a therapist. But just knowing that you have someone on your side who's checking in, I think can be so, so helpful, as long as it's someone that you trust and someone who can support you.
Wonderful. Imade, did you have something to add?
Oh, no, that was amazing.
Okay. Wow, that's really great advice, honestly, especially the part about finding a therapist that is competent in suicide prevention or knowledgeable, because I also have a diagnosis of BPD, and I've been denied or left by so many therapists because they have seen me as a liability. So I really think that's a number one important thing, is to make sure that when you are speaking to a therapist, that you ask them about their suicide prevention and what that means.
Can I ask a question? Like, this
Yes.
totally off the script. Do y'all talk about your therapy with your friends and family? Like, I found like the longer I've been in therapy, I mean, I've been there my whole life, but like the longer I've been like in this community of more like, I try and talk about it like often, but like, how do y'all find the response of like engaging with your peers and your friends and your family about talking about it?
I have found that since I started going to therapy and I started making it public information, people actually ask me, which is kind of was surprising, but they'll ask me about my own experiences, or like, well, what did your therapist say about that? Or not in a negative way, like, well, don't do that because what's your therapist say? Like, that doesn't happen. But they'll ask me from advice from my therapist, and I'll say, well, this is what my therapist said to me, but of course that doesn't necessarily apply to you. But I've also found that me speaking publicly about it has really opened the doors for a lot of it, even just friends and family wanting to go to therapy. I feel like people have seen a change in me. I'm growing. I'm still,
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
I'm still in this journey. Like, every day is a struggle, and it is active work and it is hard. But I think the people who are closest to me have seen growth and change, and they know that I have not completely given up, and it makes them want to go to therapy. So the more I speak about it, the more other people in my life also want to go to therapy. And now I feel comfortable talking about it now, whereas before I think I felt ashamed. And now I feel like I'm breaking down that stigma day by day.
Yeah, that's basically what happened to me. My mom would be like, "What skills did your therapist tell you to do? What skills? What your therapist tell you to do?" She does that, like, she says that all the time. I think it's actually kind of annoying, and I told her that. It's like, Mom, like, just let me suffer. Like, just let me cry. Let me cry it out. Like, I don't want to fix everything all the time. But I love also that she asked that question, because there's been times when, like, it's gotten really scary, where she didn't know if her daughter would wake up the next day. And so she now has support when it comes to taking care of me and, checking in on me. And I think that's so great, because, when it comes to like chronic suicidality, you really cannot go through it alone. You really need a squad. And so I'm really grateful that the people in my life know that if things get really bad, I can reach out to a mental health professional who I have a relationship with, who cares about me, who loves me, who can help me in that situation, so that they're not the only ones helping me. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. It went from my mom saying, pray it away. Did you have your pastor pray for you? Did you read your scriptures? To her taking me to therapy and her paying for therapy. And so I watched my mom change exponentially, of course, over the course of my adult life. And I would just say, to folks out there, like, there's hope. Like, it's possible that your parents, that your family members can change, because they cannot deny your progress. They cannot do that. They may deny all the stuff around therapy, but they cannot deny your healing. And they're looking at you, like they're watching us. Even when we think they're not, they're looking at us and they're seeing how we respond to therapy. And I think we make a much bigger impact than we can ever imagine.
Yes. I love that part about they can't deny your progress at all. And
They can't.
and it goes along with what you were saying earlier, Carlita, about how it's a journey, it's a process, it's like an ongoing thing. It's not that you go to therapy, you're healed, you're done, it's forever. It's work. It's an everyday thing. And so I think that's really important. In this Help Me Find a Therapist program, I know both of you are going to help so many Black folks out there. And I just really appreciate you two taking time out of your busy schedules to just partner on this and to create this campaign so that it makes it easier for Black folks to access the care that they so deserve. And
Yeah.
so no problem. And I just want others to be able to participate. Like, how can others help you with this program? Like, do you need volunteers? Can people donate? Like, what can people do?
Go ahead, Carlita.
We both made the same face. As soon as you said you need volunteers, we're like, we do. So right now we have two amazing volunteers who are actually licensed therapists who are currently helping us run the program, which has been so helpful. We can always use more volunteers because as more people are seeking therapy, we need help for sure. So you can feel free to email us at HelpMeFindATherapistProgram@gmail.com. That email address is available on both of our websites, depressedwhileblack.com and darknessrisingproject.org. All the information about the program is available on both websites. You can also find it on both of our social medias. Contact us in any way that you would like. We would love your help.
Yes. Because we gotta do things. We gotta do the right things in the right way. And for me, the right way is doing it in community and not doing it completely alone. And so what brought me to a lot of my suicidal crises was me trying to do the right things the wrong way and trying to do everything by myself, trying to pull myself out of depression by myself. And we just got to do things in community and do things in a way that heals us. And so what heals us is doing the work together and not by ourselves. And so, yeah, we need your help. We need your support. We're looking for therapists of all races to come and help us in trying to find Black therapists for our people. Is really important. This is something that I wanted to share, was that Black people are being funneled into jails and prisons instead of mental health care. Mm-hmm. We're being killed by the police just because we're in a mental health crisis. And we all know that mental health crisis is not a crime. Mm-hmm. It's life or death for us. It's real serious. And I just want my people to get care, because we're being funneled into arrest and into the juvenile and adult criminal system for just needing help. And it's happening to us way too often. So I want to end that pipeline of crisis to crime pipeline. I want us to end that pipeline and get us into therapeutic care. So we need your support, and please email us, HelpMeFindATherapistProgram@gmail.com.
Where can people go to donate and give money and throw all the dollar bills at you?
Yeah.
Is there a Cash App,
right?
PayPal?
So on both of our websites, we have donation links. You can feel free to donate there at any time. We certainly can use your donations. Our website is darknessrisingproject.org, and or Depressed While Black's website is depressedwhileblack.com, and we will happily accept donations there to help us further this program as well as others.
Absolutely. If you have white guilt, give us money. All right. I like white guilt that folds in my hand. You know what I mean? Like it folds. I like white guilt that like ups my bank account. You know what I'm saying? I like white guilt that pay my rent. Right? So white people don't just cry in the corner like y'all always do, right?
We
Turn
need
them tears into coins.
Yeah, turn them tears to coins.
Turn them tears to coins. All right, Hudson, I'm looking at you. You know, I'm looking at you right now. All right. So, and I'm not, you're not the only white man or white person. Sorry, white person in the world. But turn the tears into coins.
Yes. Turn those words into action.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's what we want to see. That's what we want to hear, and that's what we need y'all to do.
Tell your people, Hudson.
I'm all about it. Absolutely. I even told Ashley, I'm like, are you sure I'm the right person for this?
No, absolutely you are, because we need you. Like we need you. We need white clinicians to recognize the racial disparities in their industry, in the mental health system, and try to rectify it and close that gap and accurately diagnose Black folks with their right mental health conditions and not with conditions that they're doing out of a way of criminalizing them. So yeah, we need white people. And guess what? The 2 therapists that we have who are volunteering are white. So we need your support. So spread
take that white help. We will take that white help. We sure will.
Yes.
We need it.
Pack it in,
Yes.
Hudson.
Yes. That's what I called.
If I was a clinician, I would help in any way I can, but I will help I'm not a clinician. I just play one on TV, but like I will help however I can.
We'll take it. You know, in order for racism to end, the manufacturers of racism have to stop producing it.
Yep.
And so I would just say, yeah, man, just because we're blackity black, but we need white folks support now.
Yeah.
And yeah, we invite that.
That's true. That's what we really need. And that's honestly, that's true. That's true allyship there. That's true. Like we can't do this alone. Like Black people can't do this alone. White people can't do this alone. Latinx people can't do this alone. We got to work together, you know, community. Like whether that's you can donate some coin, you can literally lend your time, you can volunteer, you can just
share it. You can just share with your social networks.
Retweet. Yeah, everything.
I've also found in my work that I do with population health that like I always try and bring that lens in of like there aren't a whole lot of people of color in the work that I do. And I will persistently be the one that's out there be like, hey, like this is like, so bring it into your workplaces, like talk about it actively. Don't be afraid in meetings to say, hey, what's going on with this? Like that's something that I found has really started to help at least me feel like I'm contributing something professionally, is to like just call it out and say it. Like, you know, I was just a part of a health disparities report that was frankly bullshit. And like it didn't actually do what it was supposed to do, and call it out in your workplaces.
Yeah. Notice who's not at the table. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank Carlita and Imade and even Hudson. Thank you for joining me on this episode. Thank you for hosting this with me.
Allyship.
True allyship, Hudson. Thank you. But especially big thank you. Shout out to Carlita and Imade for their Help Me Find a Therapist program. The links will be added into our YouTube descriptions, our social media posts. You'll see it everywhere. So we'll have links to donate, links to even the program for you to participate. If you're a fellow Black folk watching this, considering therapy, consider going through the Help Me Find a Therapist program with Darkness Rising Project and Depressed While Black. So thank you again for being on the show. And everybody, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.